Work. Actually, with that one word, sparks up so many thoughts. It's that one thing we all hate doing that we just have to do. Feed your cat, feed your ma, feed the two girls you have trapped in your basement. It's necessary. But why do you have to do it? Why? Hey, Dr. Sheep. It's me, Mr. Libertarian. If you hate the job you work at, just go find another job. You're worth more than that. Don't do peasant work. Look at me. Rich money bags, sure. But that money you definitely didn't inherit from your parents. Maybe that sounds like good advice. But unfortunately, we live under a thing called capitalism. And the profits that a business makes is the labour that we put in. So we have to put in labour to keep our economy functioning. We have to do it under the pretense that we have to survive. Or it's homelessness time, yeah. So let's say, okay, our fate is sealed. What's next? Well, there's certain ways that work traps you. And I'll explain how. Part 1. How work traps you. Typical peasant mindset. How would you let work trap you? I'm an anarcho-capitalist for a reason. I'm all about freedom and liberty, as you know. Yeah, sure you are. Go fuck yourself. I'm not having this conversation with you, ANCAP. Go on. Fuck off. It's my show after all, right? We don't tolerate retardation on this channel. Anyways, boys. How does work trap you? Well, the first thing I want to start off with is the low-wage job trap. Now, what is the low-wage job trap? The low-wage job trap, to put it simply to you hear a lot of people talking about the welfare trap, council housing, welfare queens and kings and such, right? And I tell you, these kinds of people, right, don't want to be ageist or anything, not the kinds of people like me and you ought to be. They're the kinds of people with a mortgage, grey hair, marriage problems. One of them is probably a rugby or hurling coach. The other one, well, is, for lack of better words, a stay-at-home mother, which is just code for I am a woman who is probably feminist leaning. I still uphold the patriarchy though because it benefits me, and don't want to get a job, don't want to get up off my arse and get a job. But that doesn't stop her and her husband telling their children, you, to get up off your arse and go get a job, right? Did you ever hear those parents, right? Pressure you into getting a job as soon as you're out of school. The audacity, like, after you spread your wings the first time, go off out there into the world. Boy, get up off your silly arse and go get a job, will you? Go on. Your mother didn't raise no daughter now. And so, why is it now? Well, there's a high chance you wouldn't get an apprenticeship because after all, there's no value without labour, and therefore all labour is valuable. There have to be more workers in fast food. So what do? You go off and get a job there. Great. Without any other options on the table, you go and get a job at fast food. And you get the job. Great. Big mistake. Part 2. Workplace exploitation. Okay now, so you might be thinking, clutching your unwashed grill scraper in your hands as you're standing in front of the sink. Feck yeah, I'm independent now. There's no way no adult's gonna boss me around. Oh boy, do I got news for you. Spill something, don't come into work on time. Well, you've basically committed treason of the highest order. Can't be forgiven. You're a terrible human being. According to these people anyway. But hey, look, how else are you going to be making money, right? Really makes you think, should I get a union involved? And then all my normie viewers are like, let me guess. What's a union? I've heard about it in school. They used to do that back in the 30s and 40s. But haven't heard about it since. Why do you think that is? Part 3. Getting a union involved. Well, there's one thing anyway. It's not a bad idea. Now, I'll be lying to you if I said that. It is. Because employers prefer individual representation when it comes to workplace discrimination, whether it's pay or whatever, when dealing with a problem that's beyond HR, because working conditions and such, of course, and because they want to maximize their profits, of course. So it's either all or nothing. You either walk out of the shop, and I'm not talking you, I'm talking everyone. Get everyone to walk out. But again, you run into a problem because that's bad for your record. That's going on your record, and every other potential employer will see that and they wouldn't want to hire you. So there's really nothing you can do. They create a certain kind of protection for themselves in this kind of citrus fly trap of a situation for you where there's nothing you can do to not get mistreated at work. So what do? Just accept your fate? Well, it's too early for me to get onto that topic, but let me bring up a few other ways that work traps you before. Alright, you say to yourself, well, maybe this ain't so bad. I'll go find myself a few friends at work, why not? Right? It's a social place like any other. Well, unless you're starting a union, which I already advised against doing if you don't know how to do. Being friends with your co-workers is another trap that employers use quite often, and very slimily, if that's even a word. Let me explain. Because when you start work, eventually you get to the point, in some fast food places, you only get like a week's worth of vacation or days off, unless it's a sick day, so you spend 90% of your time at work. And so what happens is you're forced to socialize with the people you work with, right? And that eventually, because you work, you won't have time to talk to your friends outside of work, people, your school, maybe even your parents. And so the only people at that point you talk to are your co-workers. They become your main group of friends. And that attaches you to the workplace. It makes you unable to leave. It makes you binded by your fabric to Mackey's or Schmax's or wherever you work, right? Burger King, Starbucks, wherever. You become part of the family, as they say. You ever heard that one before? Well, there you go. That's why employers say it. Because they want you to be part of that collective. Again, another Venus flytrap for the employee. See how the rabbit hole just keeps going further and further. And here's the kicker. That who knew that stuff like this also ruins your mental health, right? Of course, they need you to be less mentally stable in order for you to be depressed and have anxiety, and you just stop caring, right? And you become this mindless, from task A to task B to clock out kind of person, right? They make you into a slave, effectively, because this job work situation consumes your entire life. Part 4. So what's the reason for all of this? Well, the bottom line is that you don't work for free. And the employer's job isn't to work, it's to turn a profit, right, at the end of the day. And since it is to turn a profit, they'll do everything to keep you working there. That's why you need to be aware of all these traps that employers throw at you in order to not be a submissive worker, in order to be independent, in order to, you have to know your rights so that you don't get exploited. So then that leads on to the next segment. Part 5. Solution. And that's why when I worked in the place we shall not name at any cost, a girl came up to me. She's like, here, you're really friendly, you're always like, well, what's the crack, hello, goodbye, all of that, right? You talk and shit, but you never go beyond that, all the stuff that they'd be doing in all these restaurants, all these workplaces and fast food places like that, he'd shift her, and then he'd shift the next one next week, and then she'd shift this other fella, and the two fellas are friends, and there's this whole network, and they always go to the nightclubs after work with each other, right?
it do be like that, right? It creates this like sense of family, false sense of family to keep them in there so they can't leave. And I explained it to her. She's like, yeah, it makes sense. I said, I know why I'm here. I'm only here for the money. I'm not here to make friends. That's the thing, because I know why they want me to. Yeah, do be like that.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to disincentivize you from finding a job. You need to work to survive in any kind of society. But what I'm saying is that you should still keep track of your rights and make sure that you are being respected at your job. Because at least if you can't fix the system, you could at least live happily under it if you know its rules. Part 5. Conclusion. So, in conclusion, sooner you realise what kind of system you live in, the better. Now, you don't necessarily have to change it, but as far as you know, it can at least cut a lot of corners for you on a path to a happier life. That's all said. I'm not trying to disincentivize you from finding work. I'm not trying to keep you lazy. That's not what I'm trying to do. If you're living with a parent, or you're dependent on someone despite being, well, quite frankly, old enough to go get a fucking job, right? It can really help you, in a lot of ways, and at least not ruin your mental health even further, right? But you should still, living in those circumstances, want to help your parents, right? Find a job, but make sure that that job and the employer who gave you it respects you. Make sure you know your rights. Make sure you're part of a union if there is one for the job. Look this stuff up. That's the final message of the video. And keep in mind all the stuff that I said beforehand, alright? Now that that's out of the way, good luck to you boys. See you in the next one. Been Dr. Sheep with you. Keep the crack 90 boys. Good luck. One of these is the low wage job trap, right? You hear conservatives often mutter on about welfare queens and such, but I'll have you know, this is a lot more worse. This is a lot worse than being a welfare queen. I'll tell you about it now. It's all about basically you'll barely make enough money a low wage working job if you live on your own. You'll almost need to work close to full time to make enough money. You'll never get the time or money to save up or invest in the stock market to build your wealth. You won't have the time to learn a new useful skill that can get net better. You look a bag of big boot.